Hi, my name is Bob. I'm Manning.
Uh,
I'm from Pittsburgh,
there you go.
PA. And it's refreshing to hear about the sweat and the blood and the tears, and the history of the text. I don't remember telling George that about you're not allowed to do this and not allowed to do. I just don't remember that story. Um, but as far as literature goes, I did not participate. I sponsored people that were involved in it quite a bit, like Jim Miller, and I've met all the people, and I was not that kind of person. I wasn't cut out. I was more banging on doors, trying to educate people about Narcotics Anonymous, and they're writing a book. And anytime I got literature that Jimmy would give me or would be mailed to me from Jimmy or was given to me by somebody else or anything that was mailed to me, I treated it like I was starving, just like George was talking about. When the newsletters came out, Memphis Miracle, um, Rainbow Connection, the main line, it was like the basic text for me. It was like I came to my home group, which we started May 10th of 78. And it was something other than the AA literature that we were using or other material that we used. There was a girl in Spokane, Washington that wrote a book. Her name was Shelley Marshall that we used sometimes. And actually, we got her to speak at a meeting one time at one of our anniversaries in 79. And I was telling everybody about Narcotics Anonymous. And instead of sending your people to AA, you can send them now to Narcotics Anonymous. And we only had a few meetings at the time. I've been clean since July 75, and it was a love affair for me to, and looking back on it, I know that God was working through me. And I didn't know it at the time. I felt like I was carrying a baton or something, and I couldn't stop. Just like Jimmy, Bo, Greg, Linda, and all the people that did the work to put the book together. I was the one waiting and waiting and waiting and complaining, where's the book? Where's the book? Stop talking about it and print it. But I can tell you that most of my friends that have been clean for 40 years, late 30 years to 40, 42, it was because of that book. It was because of the labor, the blood, sweat, and tears. And when the guys just talked about selling his blood, selling his motorcycle, it just touched me. When I was at the World Convention in Orlando, and I sat there in that room with all those people, and I was filled with a spirit that Linda was talking about, and that Bo talks about all the time. That I just looked back and was at that 9th World Convention, and I was complaining about, I sent my money in for Beaver County area and Butler and so forth, and we didn't have no literature. We were waiting for it. Where the heck's our literature at? For me, it was just like a love affair, and I always will be grateful for that literature committee. And I know there was a lot of time spent, I know Jimmy would talk about it all the time when they went to his farm, Wichita. I remember getting the information from Jimmy from the office, and Bo would tell me about it. I completed 9 grades of school, and I just didn't feel like I was qualified to participate in it. Plus, I was working. I ran a drug and alcohol program for the steel workers at that time, worked full time, and I don't know. I just didn't participate. I just wasn't cut out for me. But towards the end of the conf, I can't remember exactly when they asked me to. I think Jimmy Miller said, write your story, write your story. I just didn't feel, I don't know. I didn't feel like I had a story to tell. It was exceptional. Like when you hear banquet speakers and so forth. I just know that I loved when I got a piece of literature that came from California, like the main line, the Rainbow Connection, Memphis. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. Just like when I get new literature now from the, from wherever it comes from Narcotics Anonymous. So they told me to write my story, and I wrote the story. And at that time, it was also on a board of directors for a local drug and alcohol committee. I was a token. I felt like I was a token, but I was still able to be on that committee for one reason, so that we could get a Narcotics Anonymous meeting there. I was on a couple other different forums and I got Narcotics Anonymous meetings, helped get the meeting in there. The people would bring anybody who was willing to start a meeting. We were there to open it up. And all those meetings are still meeting today. I'm humbled that when I wrote the story, when I wrote it, I gave it to the girl who was the secretary, I guess, at the drug and alcohol program, and she edited, sent it in, and someone said, they're going to print your story. And I said, okay. And I didn't think nothing of it. To me, I just felt like God was using my story to touch somebody else. I give all the credit to God. Looking back on it, it was by his grace and mercy that he gave us the strength to sell the blood, to sell the motorcycle, to sit there and sweat. And when Bo was rubbing that girl's shoulders when she was typing, I think that was Linda. And it just like touches my heart to know that God used us, not me, but he used us to create a platform for us to get clean. I remember when I was in the Lancaster County Jail, and the only program they had at that time was ethnic orientation. And he talked about a lot of different ethnic, racial stuff that was going on at the time. There was no recovery meetings there. And I'm not sure if I would have got clean or not. I don't know. But my passion is just working in the trenches and H&I. And I'm just so grateful that God worked through Bo. I could see it back in 70, when I first met him, it was 78, 79. I was at the World Service Conference, and they made me the PI chair, and I just felt like he was using me then and today still in different ways. And the Literature Committee has my respect. Always did. I just could never sit there and listen to the, I don't know if it's not debate, but I just couldn't listen to it. I just didn't have the tolerance at that time. Today, it's a different story. So now looking back on it, I'm starting to look, and I have nothing. I only have a few things from the old days, and because I gave everything away. Because anytime I would get something, I'd always want to give it to somebody else to try to get them to sit down and read it, and maybe it might help them, to keep them coming back, So now I'm looking around. I don't have too much, so now I'm starting to accumulate a few things that are dear to me. And I want to thank another person is Danny. His fire that he has in his heart. Danny M from down in Philly. I mean, his it's contagious when I see guys like him. It reminds me of myself, and he's been clean a long time, and a team of horses couldn't get me. I mean, I just was so on fire for being clean. And when I would read this treatment center, when I looked on the wall and I seen the 12 steps of AA, it just didn't sit right with me. And when that basic text came out, I don't know, just like pop, I don't know, it filled my spirit up, and I was like, wow, thank God, finally we have our own literature that we can pass on to somebody that's suffering. And it's already saved a lot of lives, as everybody knows, and it continues to do so. And I want to thank the committee for asking me to speak, and God bless.